Good morning, all of you. This is bhatia, and today we are going to start Unit 2 and 3 of BHIC 132. Unit 2 and 3, and in Unit 2, this is the topic of Gupta's economy, Gupta's society, Gupta's culture, and Gupta's political situations, which they were using at that time. Okay, earlier yesterday, we have studied about Guptas, the rulers, the emperors, the empire of Guptas, how they ruled and where did they rule. Okay, Gupta rulers just like Chandragupta, Samudragupta, Skandagupta, Ramgupta, and so on. Today, we will start to know about the economical condition of Guptas, society, social conditions, political conditions, and cultural environment of Gupta period. Okay, first of all, we are going to start to know about the introduction of this unit 2. We have got familiar with the political history of Gupta period. Now, we take up certain other aspects of this period, just like sources to know about the economical, social, administrative, and cultural aspects of this period. And the sources of information are inscriptions, which we have studied earlier also, inscriptions written on different materials like copper plates, stone, clay seals. Next is coins issued by the rulers. We have discussed about the coins, how they issued and why did they issue the coins. Next is material from excavations. From the excavation by digging the earth, by digging some material, and they got excavations and they got the materials. Next is contemporary literature, just like Mudra Rakshas. That was a book written by uh, we will discuss earlier. We will discuss in our next unit also. Mudra Rakshas, just like literary sources, just like Bhagavad Gita, just like Ramayana, Mahabharata, means some literary sources. Next, account left by the foreign travelers, just like Fazian came there to know about his Lord Buddha. And he has written a lot of things in his book. Okay, we will study about this. These were the sources to know about Gupta period. Next, administration under the Guptas. How they administrate their country, they administrate their reign. How? We have already mentioned in Unit 1 that Gupta kings did not interfere in the administration of those regions where the kings had accepted their suzerainty. However, this doesn't mean that the Guptas were ruling only through their feudatories. They had an elaborate administrative system, elaborate, which was in operation in areas which were directly controlled by them. If we are going to start to read about an empire, then first figure of the empire, which is the king. The king remained the central figure of administration. There was a considerable change in the character of monarchy. We find that the Gupta monarchs adopted high sounding titles. Yes, just like Param Bhattaraka, just like Parma Devata, just like Chakravarti, just like Parmeshwar. These were the titles which were adopted by the Gupta's king. Why, why did they adopt these titles? Can anybody imagine about that? Any guess from your side? I'm going to tell you that the king adopted these titles to show his figurine in front of his subjects, in front of his praja. Yes, that was the main reason. So that every person of the empire of the king will remain in under control of that particular king. That's why he was adopting a high sounding titles at that time. just like Chakravarti. Chakravarti means the winner of all sides, east, west, north, south, all sides winning character was known as Chakravarti. These type of titles were adopted by Gupta kings. For example, the Allahabad Prashasti of Samudragupta describes him as equal to God Dhanada, means Kubera, like Varuna, sea god, Indra, and Antaka Vama, who had not antagonists of equal power in the world. Like the king who has been given a divine status in the Smriti sculptures. The Gupta monarchs too came to be considered a divinity on earth. These were the titles adopted by the king of Gupta. However, in the spirit of Smriti literature and that of Kalidasa, we have find Samudragupta, Skandagupta in his Bhitari pillar inscription that was as a person who subdued the earth and became merciful to the conquered people. But he became neither proud nor arrogant, though his glory was increasing day by day. Whose glory? Skandagupta. His father Kumargupta followed the true path of religion. Such references to the monarchy indicate that, in spite of supreme powers that vested in the king, he was expected to follow a righteous path and had certain duties. Just like the main duty of the king was to adopt the policy of the state during the war and the peace, what time they fight the war, and what time they stay in front of the people of that particular country, or how they do. For instance, Samudragupta was a prudent enough to reins the monarch of Dakshinapatha in their original kingdom. It was considered a prime duty of the monarch to protect his countrymen from any invasion. If any outsider invade on the country of that particular king, that the duty of the king was that to save his or her society from that invasions. The king was to lead the army in the case of war. Now we are going to tell you about the role of the king, about the duty of the king. Yes, the king was to lead the army in case of war. This is demonstrated through the campaigns of Samudragupta and Chandragupta II. The king was also expected to support the Brahmins, Sramanas, and all others who needed his protection. He was also supposed to penetrate the learned and religious people and give them every possible help at the time of war. As a supreme judge, he looked after administration of justice according to religious perspectives and existing customs. That was the main duty. It was a duty of the king to appoint his central and provincial officers. The Pryaga Prashasti as well as the Aparadiga type coins of Kumargupta I point to the appointment of successors to the throne by reigning kings. An important political development of this period was continuity of various kings in their region once they had accepted the suzerainty of the Gupta king. And the Gupta king would not interfere with the administration of such regions. Next is army. Without army, a king that doesn't consider in front of anything. Without army, there is no role of a king. Army was the main thing which was run by the king. The Guptas must have had a big army organization. If there is no army organization, then there is no role of a king. If he is getting fight with the with other subcontinents. At the time of war, the king led his army, but ordinarily there was a minister called Sandhi Vigrahaka, means minister in charge of peace and war, who was helped by the group of high officials. The official title Mahabaladhikrita occurs in many inscriptions. These were the titles adopted by the officials. Mahabaladhikrita. Officials like Pilupati, head of elephants, Ashwapati, head of horse, Narpati, head of foot soldiers, possibly worked under him, whose minister. The army was paid in cash and its needs were well looked after by an officer in charge of stores called Rana Bhandagrik. Amongst other duties, this officer was to look after the supply of offensive and defensive weapons such as battle axes, bow and arrows, spear pikes, swords, lances, javelins. These were the tools which were used by the people, which were used by the army in front of war. Next, provinces, districts, and villages. Yes, the whole empire was divided into desas, rashtras, or bhuktis, and the inscriptions provide us with the name of certain bhuktis. In Bengal, we hear of Pundagrahaka, bhukti which correspond to North Bengal. Tira bhukti correspond to North Bihar. The bhuktis were governed by uparikas, directly appointed by the king. Just like states, we can say states because a country is divided into states. And here we are going to start, here we are going to call the states to the bhuktis, bhuktis to the states. In areas like Western Malwa, we find local rulers like Bandhu Varman, ruling as subordinate to Kumar Gupta I. But Parananda was appointed a governor in Sarushastra by Skandagupta. The province means just like a bhukti, means as we can say the state. The state was again divided into districts. As at present time, the state is divided into the districts also. That's again divided into districts just like Vaishyas under an official called Ayuktana and in other cases a Vaishyapati. His appointment was made by the provincial governor. The governor was appointed by the king and governor appointed Vishyapati. Gupta inscriptions from Bengal show that the office of the direct head associated with itself representation from major local communities. Nagar Shasti, head of city merchants. Sarthavaha, caravan leader. Prathama Kulika, head of artisan community. And Prathama Kayastha, head of Kayastha community. These were the names which were using for that particular things. Besides them, or the push was Puspalaka, officials whose work was to manage and keep records. They were known as Pustapalas. The lowest unit of administration was the village. Yes, as today also, lowest unit of the administration was village, where there was a headman called Gramapati. However, the Gupta inscriptions from North Bengal show that there were other units higher than the village. In some cases, we find references to Astakuldirana. Different categories of villages mentioned as Gramikas, Kutumbis, and Mahattaras sent representatives to those offices which on various occasions function above the level of the village. Next is economy. We have discussed what? We have discussed about the king, we have discussed about the sources, literary sources, and we have discussed about the state, village, and we have discussed about the bhuktis, means the states, which were characterized by the Guptas. Next is economy. By the help of economy, a country can run. Otherwise, country cannot be run. You have read earlier that agricultural crops constituted the main resources which the society produced, and the major part of the revenue of the state also came from agriculture. Yes, the king got so many economy, so many wealth and resources from agriculture. That's why agriculture was the main part of the economy. This, of course, does not mean that agriculture was the only occupation of the people or that people lived only in villages. There were other occupations like commerce and production of craft, which had become specialized occupation and in which different social groups were engaged. This was means that as in earlier periods people lived in forest, in agrarian tracts, in towns and cities, but certain changes had started taking place in the pattern of economic pattern and consequently in relations between different social groups. We shall highlight some of these changes in the course of this and next section, like agriculture. The first of all, we are going to start about the agriculture by which the king was having a lot of taxes on agriculture. Let us begin with the pattern of agriculture production. The concern of the society with agricultural production is clear from the way various aspects associated with the agricultural operations are mentioned in the sources of Gupta period. Various types of land are mentioned in the inscription, just like land under cultivation was usually called kshetra. Lands not under cultivation was variously called as khila, aprahata, etc. And inscriptions gave the impression that uncultivated land was being regularly brought under cultivation. Classification of land according to soil, according to fertility, and the use of which it was put was not unknown. Different land measures were known in different regions, although one cannot be certain what exact measure was denoted by a term. After agriculture, we are going to discuss about the craft production and the trade. The craft production covered a very wide range of items. There were items of ordinary domestic use, just like earthen pots, items of furniture, baskets, metal tools for domestic use, and so on. Simultaneously, a wide variety of luxury items, including jewelry made of gold, jewelry made of silver and precious stones, and objects made of ivory, fine clothes of cotton, silk, and other costly items had to be made available to the affluent sections of people. Some of these items were made available through trade, others were manufactured locally, and the descriptions of many luxury objects, of which no trace is generally found in archaeological excavations, may be found in the literary text or inscription of that particular period. In which period we are discussing about? Gupta period. Next, before before ending any period, any empire, we should know about the cultural activities of that particular empire. The Gupta period has often been referred to as Golden Age due to its cultural heritage. This applies to great accomplishments in the field of art and architecture, language and literature. The Gupta age thus stands out as a significant and noteworthy departure from previous historical periods, particularly in the cultural history of India, due to impressive standards achieved by artistic and literary expressions of this time. For the same reason, cultural development and cultural legacy of the Gupta is dealt with separately in subsequent Unit 15 of this course. Yes, after cultural heritage, after cultural society, we are going to start to know about the social system and how the society was working at that time. You have already read that according to the scheme of society conceived by the Brahmins, society was divided into four varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, with each varna performing the set of functions prescribed for it and enjoying whatever rights were given to it. This was the ideal social order, and the state was expected to preserve it. This means that when even a small state emerged in some corner of the country, the king of that state was expected to recognize this as the ideal social order. The Brahmins came to exert considerable influence on the kings, and this is quite clear from the way they received land from the kings and others. The kings, officials, and others gave land not only to individual Brahmins but also sometimes incited big groups of Brahmins to come and settle in remote areas. Thus, the number of Brahmin settlements variously called Brahmadiyas, Agraharas, and so on started increasing, and they started spreading, among other things, the idea of a Varna divided social order. Means Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. How the Brahmins survived at that time? The king officially gave land to the Brahmins, and that land was without any tax. The Brahmins did not need to give any type of tax to the king. That was tax prohibited land, we can say. Okay. Next, as you all know about the Varna system, we have discussed earlier. That's why I'm not discussing that much about Varna system. In my previous classes, I have discussed a lot about Varna system: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. In this unit, after going through the various aspects of Gupta administration, economy, culture, society, we find that considerable changes had taken place when compared to earlier periods, means Maurya period, means Mahajanpada period, and means Indus Valley civilization and Vedic period. We have seen a lot of considerable changes in this period also. An important aspect related to kingship was the continuity of various kings in their regions once they had accepted the suzerainty of Gupta king. There was considerable concern towards agricultural production, and this is reflected from the way irrigation got priority during this period. The practice of gifting land to religious donees had become quite common, and the Brahmins exerted considerable influence over the king. Yes, that was a duty of Brahmins. There was differentiation amongst the cultivators, and compared to the rich, and the condition of ordinary cultivators declined considerably. Similarly, the wealth and social status of different type of craftsmen also varied. Though commercial activities continued during this period, it appears that there was a decline in craft production. This period also witnessed significant development in art, architecture, and literature. The Varna system continued in society. Various foreign ruling families were assimilated in the Varna system. At the same time, various groups were kept out of the Varna scheme and were considered untouchables. Untouchables were not in Varna system. There was also a considerable decline in the position of women in the society. As untouchable, women were also considered with the same thing, just like untouchable. The condition of woman was not very good at that time. She has no right in front of the family. She has no right to speak in front of the family. She has no right. If the father and the husband and the brother of that particular woman was talking, but a woman has no right to speak in front of that people. Next, Unit 3, the Pushyabhutis and the rise of Harsas. Have you listened about Harshvardhan? Harshvardhan is the main ruler in Pushyabhutis. Yes, earlier we have discussed about Guptas. We have discussed about the political, social, and economical and cultural system of Guptas. Now we are going to start to know about Pushyabhutis, and in Pushyabhutis, the rise of Harsha. The political scenario in post Gupta. Yes, we can say this period a post Gupta period also, because we have discussed a lot about Gupta period. We have discussed about a golden age period. Okay, now in post Gupta period, we are going to start our introduction. The political scenario in post-Gupta North India was characterized by emergence of numerous ruling families like Bokhris of Kanyakuch, later Guptas of Magadha, Godas of West Bengal, Mitrakas of Vallabhi, Pushyabhutis of Thaneshwar, etc. These were the rulers of post-Gupta period in North India. Many of them were generally subordinates of the Guptas. But with the decline of political authorities of Gupta, they assumed independence. North India in 6th century was thus an arena where multiple ruling powers, all rooted in their respective regional contexts, were constantly fighting with each other. If one big empire will get declined, then so many small emperors, they stand up in front of all emperors, and they fight with each other on behalf of their land, on behalf of their states, Rhine countries, on behalf of this. In such a political scenario, the Samantas means the subordinate of the king. The Samantas emerged powerfully. They kept control over outlying areas or fought battles in areas far away from the political centers of their overlords. The rise of local and regional powers has been regarded as the hallmark of this period. In this unit, we are introducing you to a brief history of Pushyabhutis and how Harsha became the most powerful ruler and succeeded in establishing an empire. Yes, now after Guptas, what was the changing political scenario in North India? In this period, we see that some regions became more important than others. For example, the places located in strategically sound areas like those situated on elevated regions are those surrounded by hills or rivers. Regions which were well connected by land and water routes for facilitating the movement of army or the easy transport of supplies, provisions for the army assumed more importance than the older Rajdhanis. These new centers were called, what were they called? Jayas Kandavaras, literally meaning camp of victory in epigraphs. New type of political centers, Jayas Kandhavars. New type of political centers, how the small emperors made their political centers. Now we are going to start all these. It was from these Jayaskandawas that the ruling dynasties issued land grants to religious recipients like Brahmins or monasteries or temples. Inscriptions of the early medieval polities are replete with references to various Jayaskandavas under different kings. From such references, the political conquest and the extent of territories of the rulers may be inferred. As for instance, the Banskera and Madhuban copper plates of Harsha were issued from the Jaya Skandavars of Vardhaman Koti, Kapithika, respectively. Both were probably located somewhere in Uttar Pradesh. Yes. Kannauj was a main political center of that time. Kannauj. Kannauj, earlier known as Kanyakups. That was earlier name of Kannauj was Kanyakups or Mahodaya. That was situated in Kannauj district of present Uttar Pradesh, assumed a lot of significance in the politics of early medieval North India. That was located in the fertile plains of Ganga Yamuna Doab. Kannauj stood on an elevated area that could be easily fortified. Thus, despite the fact that it was situated in the plains, due to its favorable location, it could be easily fortified and was secure. And besides, Kannauj was rooted in a large agrarian expanse in the western Ganges plains. Land grants could be made in the plenty from this area. Naturally, the area attracted a large number of Brahmins who settled here, and for subsequent centuries, the Brahmins of Kannauj came to be widely esteemed in the royal courts throughout the country. Kannauj was also well connected by routes going towards east into Ganges plains, as well as with those going to the south. Due to all these factors, it rose to power and became an important nodal point of the north. With this development, we see a shift of focus from Patliputra in South Bihar to Kannauj. The latter also came to constitute a central theme in the politics of post Gupta North India. As a political center, Kanyakups first appears in the Harshacharita as a seat of power of Mokhris under Grahavarman. Grahavarman, who was married to Pushyabhuti Princess Rajeshri, the sister of Harshvardhan. When Harshvardhan became king, he chose this city as his seat of power instead of Thaneshwar in Haryana, which was the capital of his predecessors. This choice of capital might have been due to the threatening activities of the Hunas, who were making inroads into India from the northwest since the reign of Skandagupta in the middle of 5th century CE. Since Kaneshwar was closer to the northwest, Harshavardhana must have felt more secure at Kanyakuch as it was more centrally located to the east. That's why Harshvardhana liked to live in Kanyakuts. Now the topic is decline of Patliputra because earlier the capital was Patliputra. How Patliputra declined at that time and how they became their capital Kannauj. Historians like R.S. Sharma are of the opinion that Patliputra in the post-Gupta period was on decline due to decay of trade and commerce. That was the main reason behind the decline of Patliputra. This was part of process of feudalization of the state polity and economy. Tolls used to be collected from traders coming to this city from other places. Toll tax. Since trade declined, money of in the form of coins had become scarce. Trade declined and money also declined. Thus, officers, soldiers, and other royal servants had to be given their salaries through the assignment of land. Therefore, in the post Gupta times, the cities lost their importance and Skandavaras acquired prominence. Thus, R.S. Sharma has remarked that Patliputra largely represent the pre-feudal order, whereas the emergence of Kanyakubja under Harsh typifies the advent of feudal age in the North India. Next is Pushyabhutis. Previous topic was the decline of Patliputra, the trade decline, okay, and the city was declined, trade was declined, and the coins was also declined. That was the main scarcity of the coins of the period. Okay, and after the scarcity of the coins, the army was given salary on behalf of agriculture, on behalf of land parts. Next is Pushyabhutis. A variety of sources inform us about the rise of family of Pushyabhutis, which was first ruled from Thaneshwar in Haryana and later from Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. These sources include the Harsha Charita, accounts of Huensa, some inscriptions and some coins. Banabhatta inform us that the founder king of this dynasty at Thaneshwar was Pushyabhuti and that the family was known as Pushyabhuti Vansha. However, the inscriptions of Harsha make no reference to him. The Banshera and the Madhuvan plates and royal seals mention five earlier rulers, among whom the first three are given title of Maharaja. This may indicate that they were not sovereign monarchs. The fourth king, who was the fourth king? Prabhakar Vardhana. Prabhakar Vardhana. Harshvardhana? Yes, Prabhakar Vardhana. That was described as a Maharaja Dhiraj, which makes us infer that he was an independent monarch and had established matrimonial relations with Mokris by marrying his daughter Rajeshri with Grahavarman. What was the political activities of Harsha? Political activities of Harsha. Harsha ascended the throne in 606 CE. He belonged to Pushyabhuti dynasty based around Thansvira, that is modern Thaneshwar in the Ambala district of Punjab. The claims of conquest made in records of Harsha can be judged from the inscriptions of his contemporary kings like Sasanka, the king of Gauda, Chalukya, Pulkeshin II. Both were his rivals. Who were his rivals? Sasanka, king of Gauda, and Chalukya, that was Pulkeshin II. We will discuss about the political activities of Harsha in the following manner. Next, what was the early career of Harshvardhana? Prabhakar Vardhana was Harsha's father and the fourth king in the line. His two sons were, what was the name of the two sons? Rajyavardhana and Harshavardhana. For Prabhakar Vardhana, father name Rajyavardhana and Harshvardhana, they two were the son of the Prabhakar Vardhana. His daughter Rajeshri was married to Grahavarman. Who was Grahavarman? The king of Mokri dynasty of Kannauj, Kanyakuts. It was an important marriage alliance which influenced the power balance in 7th century North India. Gauda, the archival of the Mokris. Earlier, the Mokri king Isanavarman claimed to have defeated the Gaudas. Archival of Mokris. Who was Gauda? Gauda had formed an alliance with Devagupta of Malwa. Next is Eastern Campaign. The Gauda king Sasanka and Malwa king Devagupta had created trouble by killing Grahavarman. They have created trouble by killing. They killed Grahavarman, the Mokri king, and the brother-in-law of Harsha. They killed that. They captured Kannauj. Rajyavardhan, Harsha's elder brother, died in enemy camp. After rescue his sister and Grahavarman's widow Queen Rajeshri, Harsha Harsha was offered the throne by the ministers of mockeries since they had no successor. Harsha now occupied the throne of Kannauj and thus began to rule over both the territories of Pushyabutis and Mokris. He now took a vow to take revenge on Sasanka and invade those kingdoms in east which had refused allegiance to him. Next is Western India. How they captured Western India. The kingdom of Vallabhi in Saurashtra was being ruled by the Metrakas, who were vassals of Guptas. The relationship between Harsha and the Metraka dynasty is a little complicated. In the inscription of Gurjara kings of Broch, they claimed to have protected the Vallabhi ruler who was overpowered by Harsha. Originally, the Latas, the Malwas, and the Gurjaras occupied a strategic position in between the kingdoms of Harsha and that of Chalukya, Pulkesin II situated to the north and south of Narmada respectively. Thus, both Harsha and Pulkesin would attempt to bring three of them under control. Pulkesin II claims these three rulers as his vassals in his Ehol inscription. Ehol is a type of inscriptions. Conflict with Pulkesin II. How the Harsha got conflict in with Pulkesin II. The kingdoms of Harsha and Pulkesin II touched on the border of river Narmada. In his Ehol inscription, Pulkesin says that Harsha's joy melted away through fear when his elephants fell in battle. From the account of Zhuangzhang, it appears that Harsha took the initiative but could not achieve any success against Pulkesin. Harsha took initiative but could not achieve any success against Pulkesin. Regarding the claim made by the successors of Pulkesin that he acquired the title of Parmeshwara by defeating Sakalottaparatheswara. He acquired the title Parmeshwar by defeating Harsha. Who defeated Harsha? Pulkesin defeated Harsha. And who adopted the title Parmeshwar? Pulkesin adopted the title Parmeshwar. R.C. Majumdar suggests that the result of battle was magnified in favor of Pulkesin by his successors. This is a fine example of the poet's intention to speak highly of the rivals in royal prashastis in order to glorify the achievements of their patrons. Conflict with Pulkesin II. Firstly, Pulkesin first, now Pulkesin II. Harsha appears to have been in occupation of parts of present UP, South, and Odisha. He inherited Thaneshwar. He inherited parts of eastern Punjab, eastern Rajasthan. Besides, Bhaskar Verma, the ruler of Kamrup, was his subordinate ally. And Harsha also exercised influence on the kings of Jalandhar and perhaps Kashmir also. In the south of Narmada was the boundary beyond which Pulkesin II was ruling. In the south of Narmada, that was boundary beyond which Pulkesin II was ruling at that time. Zhuangzhang. As I told you earlier, two foreign travelers, Zhuangzhang and Faxian. Faxian came in 5th century, Zhuangzhang came in 7th century. Where? In India. To know about his god Buddha. Zhuangzhang. He has taken a lot of information from India and he has written book with a traveling history of India. Zhuangzhang. The Chinese pilgrim traveled in India from 629 to 645 CE. How many years? 39, 10, and 6. 16 years he traveled in India. He stayed in India 16 years. He speaks about the prosperity of Kannauj under Harsha. When Harshavardhana was the ruler of Kannauj, was the ruler, and the capital of Kannauj, capital was Kannauj. Now he is going to describe about the condition of Kannauj, the prosperity of Kannauj, the goodness of Kannauj during the reign of Harshavardhana. He says that the king traveled frequently throughout his kingdom to understand the condition of his subject. Who king? Harshvardhana king. And where is the kingdom? In Kannauj. He presents Harsha as a follower of Mahayana Buddhism. He presents Harsha as a follower of Mahayana Buddhism. And he has given a grand description of Buddhist assembly at Khanyakots during his reign. When Harshvardhan was in his ruling period, then one Buddhist assembly was held in Kanyakups, and he was the founder of that particular assembly. That's why Zhuangzhang represent Harshvardhan as a good Mahayana Buddhist follower. He also says that Harsha used to pay salary to his ministers and officials by land grants. By land grants means Harshvardhana gave a piece of land to his ministers, to his officials, that this land is yours and this is your salary also. However, the actual evidence of such regular grants, secular grants, has not come down to us. He also mentions that this patronage to the Mahayans by Harsha was resented by the Hinayans and the Brahmins. Harsha almost exhausted the royal treasury by making lavish gifts to the Buddhists. Yes, he gave a lot of gifts, he gave a lot of things to Buddhists. How far this account is true is difficult to ascertain, but it definitely brings out the religious tensions among different sects of this period who fought among themselves to secure royal patronage. Harsha era. Al-Biruni, the traveler. Have you listened about Al-Biruni, Ibn Battuta, Francois Bernier? They were the travelers at that time in 8th century, 7th century, 9th century, 10th century. Al-Biruni, who came to India in 11th century, records that Harsha era was in use in Mathura and Kannauj. This era commenced from 600 CE. The date of Harsha's extension to throne, the Banshera, Madhuban, and newly discovered Kurukshetra, Varanasi copper plates of Harsha, as well as the Shahpur image inscription of Aditya Sena, are probably dated in this era. Previously, the Guptas, who ruled a large part of North India, had also introduced the Gupta era. This indicates that the rulers wished to commemorate themselves to posterity by initiating an era in their name. Harsha's end and Harsha's reign era. From the Chinese sources means Zhuangzhang. Yes, Zhuangzhang. That was the name of Zhuangzhang. From the Chinese sources, we learn that Tang, the emperor Tai Song, sent an embassy to the court of Harsha. Tai Sang, yes, the emperor Tai Song sent an embassy to the court of Harsha. This is not embassy, this is ambassador. Okay? Tai Song sent an ambassador to the court of Harsha in 643 and again sent his ambassador in 647 CE On the last occasion, they found Harsha was no longer alive, and his throne has been usurped by someone. With the help of forces from Nepal, from Assam, the usurper was defeated and taken as a prisoner to China. This event shows the growing interest of Chinese in politics of North India. Yes, now the summary. We have discussed about Gupta period. We have discussed about Gupta's social, political, cultural, economical condition. We have discussed about Pushyabhutis. We have discussed a lot about Harshvardhana also. The rise of Harsha imply reflects the rise to importance of Ganga Yamuna Doab. Yes, Doab is the area, okay, Ganga Yamuna Doab, that was a very important area by which the agriculture condition, in which the agriculture condition was very good at that time because for irrigation purposes, the Ganga and the Yamuna, both rivers were there. Okay, and the land of that particular Doab area that was very much fertile for the people of that particular place. That's why the wars and the fightings were held on behalf of Doab area. That's why the rise of Harsha Empire reflects the rise to importance of Ganga Yamuna Doab. No doubt that it obtained much fame in the influential accounts of Banabhat and Zhuangzi. The epithet Sakalota Pathanta applied to him by his rivals. Rivals were Chalukyas of Deccan, further emphasized its significance. In Deccan, Chalukyas were coming at that time, Chalukyas of Deccan. They were the rivals of Harshvardhana. The above discussion, however, would indicate how this claim is grossly exaggerated. Even putting aside such claims, the emergence of Kannauj in the post Gupta polity cannot be denied. Kannauj commanded an impressive agrarian hinterland, which was important in the growth of town. I think hinterland, agrarian hinterland means the land that was very much fertile for agricultural purposes. Okay, that was of Kannauj. That's why the importance of Kannauj was very much at that time. This also reflects the changing political economy in which exploitation of agrarian resources became essential for the innumerable local, supra-local, and regional dynasties that were to dominate the North Indian political arena for subsequent years to come at that time. Yes, we have discussed a lot of about Pushyabhutis. That is very important. We have discussed about Harshvardhana, Pulkeshin 1, Pulkeshin 2nd. We have discussed about Alberoni. Okay, we have discussed about uh, Zhuangzhang. We have discussed about Fazian. Okay, Fazian and Zhuangzhang. That were the foreign travelers who came to India in search of the sources of his their Lord Buddha. We have discussed about the rival of Harshvardhana was Chalukyas. Okay, after finishing this, we will continue in our next unit, unit 5 and unit 4, Chalukyas, Cheras, Cholas, and the temple making of that particular period. We have discussed a lot about Banabhat, Raj Tarangini, Mudra Rakshas, okay, and the first and last important city that was Kannauj. With the help of Kannauj, the Harshvardhana was ruled over that period. Yes, from Nepal, Assam, and so many more. China also. Okay, they were the rivals of Harshvardhana also, because and nowadays China also very much rival of India. That's why China was a rival of India at that time also. Okay, we have discussed about Zhuanzhang accounts, because when Zhuanzhang came to India in 7th century BCE, then he collect all the evidences related to Buddha also. But at the time of society, religious and the political system of India at that time, he assembled that all records in his book also, in his accounts also. That was also very much good source for us in the Harshvardhana period of that particular time. Harshvardhana time. Just a second. Harshvardhana was connected to Hinayana sect. Hinayana. Have you heard about Hinayana and Mahayana? Hinayana and Mahayana were the two sects that were belonged to Buddhism. After the death of Gautam Buddha, the Buddhists were divided into two parts, Hinayana and Mahayana. Okay, from Hinayana group, Harshvardhana was belonged to at that time. He was a king at that time, and his kingdom was connected to Kannauj. And the important questions I'm going to tell you about this unit 2 and 3 was, what was the condition of Harshvardhana? What was the reason behind the success of Harshvardhana of that time? Okay, how they connect with Kannauj? Because earlier they were connected with Thaneshwar in Haryana, but after Thaneshwar and Haryana, how they connected with Kannauj? Kanyakut was the older name of Kannauj. Okay, that was also very much important question of that period. And second last important question of that period was unit 1, 2, and 3. What was the, how can you say that the Gupta period a golden age? How can you say? You will have to explain that how the cultural heritage was rich at that time. That's why we say the golden age to the Gupta period. That was the main difference between these. And the other important question of that time, the what was the causes behind the decline of Gupta period? How Guptas were declined at that time? Resources were less, trade was less, and the coins was also less working at that time. That was the main reasons behind. You will explain all that things in your answer sheet, that the decline of that particular rank means the decline of that particular Gupta period. You will explain in that also. The question, yes, Zhuanzhang and Faxian were two foreign travelers. How did they come to India? Why did they come to India? And what was the main resources of that particular period? In Gupta period, in Harshvardhana period, and in Kannauj period also. Okay, that were the main important things to discuss about that. Harshvardhana, Gupta's golden age, and Gupta's decline, they were the important question of that particular time. Traveler's account, Zhuanzhang and Fazia, Ibn Battuta, Bernier, and what was the role of court poets? What were the role of court poets in front of the rulers of the Gupta, just like Samudragupta, just like we have discussed earlier in our yesterday class, that we have discussed about Harisena, the court poet of Harshvardhana, the court poet of Samudragupta, Harisena. Harisena has written a lot of praise things, just like he compare his ruler, he compare his king to the Varun, to the Arun, Varun and Yam. That was the great grand titles which were adopted by the kings at that time. Yes, this question is also can also come in short note. What was the reason behind the rulers were adopting the great titles? What was the reason behind this? Yes, you will write the answer, which we have discussed a lot about that. Okay. Uh, we have discussed summary, and now we are going to end the session. We will meet tomorrow. Thank you. Have a nice day.